Hi everyone, this is Christine from Group 1. For today, we will be discussing about the topic insect growth and development. In this lesson, we are going to talk about the growth of insects, kinds of growth, metamorphosis, types of metamorphosis, and lastly, the types of pupa. Growth progresses through successive stages. Females lay eggs, which hatch into an immature stage. After passing through a series of immature stages, the insect emerges as an adult. The adult then mates, and the cycle begins and continues. The growth of individual insects proceeds in a progressive manner throughout the immature period of the development. Rate growth can vary depending on a variety of factors such as molting, frequency, temperature, and nutrition. Growth usually is distinguished from development in that the latter refers to the various morphological and physiological changes that occur throughout the lifespan of an insect as it progresses toward maturation. This time, let us try to know, how do insects grow? There are two kinds of insect growth. First is the intermediate growth. Insects that have intermediate growth continue to molt even after reaching the adult stage. Here are some examples of insects that exhibit intermediate growth. First are the collembolans, next are the diplorans, and the next one is the thysanurans. In contrast, the majority of insects exhibit determinate growth in which both growth of molting cease upon reaching the reproductively mature last instar. An example of insect that exhibit determinate growth and is common to the environment is the butterfly. Other insects undergo growth through molting, where it involves the periodic digestion of most of the old cuticle, secretion of new cuticle, and shedding of undigested cuticle known as ecdysis. So this time, let us talk about metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a developmental process by which a first instar immature stage is transformed into the adult. In other words, metamorphosis means to change in form. Before we proceed to the types of metamorphosis, let's define first the terms used in metamorphosis. First term is the word stage. This is the period of development of an organism. Next is the word molting. This one is the periodic shedding of the old exoskeleton. Another one is the term naiads. These are the water-dwelling larvae. Next is the word nymphs. This is the immature form of some invertebrates, particularly insects, which undergo gradual metamorphosis before reaching its adult stage. Another one is the term larvae. These are the wingless immature worm-shaped form of many insects. Next one is the term pupa. An insect, this is the stage between a larva and an adult in complete metamorphosis. Another one is the term cocoon. This is the silky covering with which a caterpillar or other insect larva encloses itself during its transition to an adult stage. Another term is the word chrysalis. This is where the insect is at the stage of changing from larva to adult. Next is the term puparium. This is the hardened last larval skin that encloses the pupa in some insects, especially Hyradyptera or flying insects. Lastly, we have the term instar. This is the form of the developing insect between two molts. The exact style of metamorphosis is not the same for all insects, but insects in the same order have the same style of metamorphosis. You can't look at an adult insect and see metamorphosis, but it is one of the characteristics used for putting insects in their orders. Here's the 5 types of metamorphosis. First is the ametabulous or no metamorphosis. Some orders of insects are said to have no metamorphosis because there is little or no difference in appearance between the young stages and the adult except for size, development of gonads and external genitalia, and insects with no metamorphosis all belong to wingless orders of insects. It grows only in size by replacing its old skin through a process called molting. In this figure, Lepisma is an example of an insect that undergoes ametabulous development. The youngs emerge from the eggs, which resembles the adult except in the size and the sexual structures. It is then called nymph. In the nymph, the reproductive organs are undeveloped. The young insects live in the same surroundings and eat the same food the same way as the adults. They grow to adulthood by splitting the old shell when it becomes too tight, and they will wiggle out of it. After the insects reach a certain size and their reproductive organs have fully developed, they can now mate. These insects change little except to grow larger. Second type of metamorphosis is the hemimetabulous or incomplete metamorphosis. The insects which attain adult forms by gradual morphological change with successive molts are called hemimetabulous development or incomplete metamorphosis. This is where the insect has the life stages, eggs, naiads, and adult. Adult insects lays its eggs in or near water, and the naiads develop in water. Naiads and adults therefore do not eat the same kind of food, since there is a habitat difference. In addition, naiads have chewing mouthparts, but the adults have no functional mouthparts. The naiad and the adult usually differ a lot in appearance, although the naiads gradually develop wings. As we can see here, the stages of the life cycle of a hemimetabulous resemble to porometabulous development, except the nymphs are called naiads. So later on, we will discuss about porometabulous development, and then you can compare. The wingless naiads live in water and breathe by means of gills. After they reach full growth, they crawl out of the water into a plant stem or rock. There, they shed their shells for the first time and become winged adults. No further molting takes place after the formation of wings. Only exception in mayfly, where winged form comes out of the aquatic nymph and rests on a tree to undergo another molting to become an adult. So here we see an example of a hemimetabulous metamorphosis in dragonflies. The eggs are laid in the water where the naiads hatch and develop, and when they will become adults, they will shed off through molting and develop wings. Third is the parametabolous or gradual metamorphosis, which is quite comparable to hemimetabulous. The stages of the life cycle of the hemimetabulous resemble to the parametabolous development, and it has three life stages. We have the eggs, the nymph, and the adult. Now, as we can notice, instead of having the middle stage called naiad, we call them nymphs. The nymphs resemble the adult except that their body parts are out of proportion with each other. This insect do not have fully developed wings. Nymphs have the same type of mouth parts as the adult, and they both eat the same kind of food. In this figure, the newly young which comes out of egg closely resembles the adult in the general body form, habits, and habitat. But many adult features, example, the wings and the reproductive organs, are undeveloped, and their relative proportions of the body also differ. The youngs are called nymphs. The external genitalia develop gradually at each molt. These nymphs lead an independent life and attain adult form through several molts. This is called gradual metamorphosis or parametabolous development because the young undergoes slow but steady change in each molt and attains the adult form. Sometimes the gradual metamorphosis or parametabolous development is included under hemimetabulous development because in each molt the proportion of the head gradually becomes smaller and the abdomen becomes longer. Next kind of metamorphosis is the holometabulous or complete metamorphosis. It has four distinct form stages. First is the egg, and then the larvae, the pupa, and adult. This is the kind of rapid morphological change during post-embryonic transformation in some forms of insects where larva has no similarity with the adult and there's always a pupal stage. An example of the insect that undergoes complete metamorphosis are flies. In this figure, the larvae develop from the egg. The larvae of the fly are worm-like creatures that look completely different from their parents. Among many species, the larvae live in different places and eat different food. They do not have their parents' compound eyes and wings. Most of them have chewing mouth parts, although their parents may have sucking mouth parts. Larvae molt several times and get a little larger with each molt. After a larva completes its growth, it stops eating. It then becomes a pupa. The pupa usually does not eat or move around much, but a lot of internal changes takes place. When the pupa has made all its internal changes, its skin splits and the fully formed adult emerges. Most insects with complete metamorphosis are winged in the adult stage. Examples of the species that undergo holometabulous developments are beetles, caddisflies, butterflies, moths, mosquitoes, flies, bees, and wasps. Most insects differ in their larvae. In the housefly, the larva is worm-like and devoid of appendages. It is called the maggot. In the case of the beetle, The larva is known as the grub. The body of the grub is very thick and with a thoracic legs and well-developed head. In moths of butterflies, the larva is known as caterpillar, which possesses a distinct head with powerful mandibles and 3 pairs of jointed thoracic legs. Now this time, let's talk about the pupa. It is an immobile and often remain within a protective covering from predators called the cocoon. Second is let's discuss about the different types of pupa. First is the exorate pupa. This is a very common type of pupa and is found in almost all holometabolous insects, except Lepidoptera. This pupa is characterized by the presence of free legs and appendages, and the abdomen is capable of movement. It is also called the free pupa. This figure is an example of an exorate pupa, which is cut longitudinally and has a protective covering called the cocoon. Second is the object pupa, which is seen among moths and butterflies and is characterized by the wings and appendages are not moved and fixed to the body by a molting fluid. In butterflies, called chrysalis, it contains chrysalis, and it possesses a slender stalk at the top by which the pupa remains attached to the twigs. Next is the coarctate pupa, which is seen among dipterans. The pupa of the housefly is enclosed by a hard barrel-shaped chitinous case called puparium. The puparium is segmented externally and the spiracles remain projected outwardly. The pupa of mosquitoes is comma-shaped and contains broad anterior cephalothorax. In this figure, the larva contains spiracle and the external tracheal aperture, usually one of the series of small apertures located along the posterior portion of the pupa. So we can see here that it is really segmented and the spiracles are at the end of the pupa. Now we have here the pre-pupa. In holometabolous insects, a stage is seen before the pupal stage called the pre-pupa. During this stage, the feeding usually stops and sometimes a cocoon is produced. The pre-pupa resembles the larva, but it is often shrunken and less pigmented. Lastly, the last type of metamorphosis is the hypermetamorphosis or the hypermetabolous development. This is a kind of metamorphosis in which there are 2 or 3 distinct types of larval instars with different habits and structures found in certain insects. This type of metamorphosis is seen in blister beetles. This is an example of the life cycle of the blister beetles. The larva comes from the egg, and when the larva completes its growth, it becomes the pupa. This insect has an exorate pupa. since it contains the cocoon that protects the pupa. Here are the references we used for this topic, and I hope you learned something in this video. Thank you for listening and have a good day.